What I think people misunderstand about entrepreneurship is we aren't inherently risky or people that like to take risks. We like to take risks when we understand the reward, and the reward is larger than the risk. You have to love and live in that risk-reward scenario compared to what people think, which is all risk.
We would always have a playbook, and that's basically the vision, the mission, the values, the team rules, long-term goals, strategy, all boiled down to execution.
And if you don't show up in your business loving what you turn over for your customers or your clients, your business is in decline. And I thought, I must show up 100% for the people who hire me. And if I am not, my time has come. And that's when I started to make shifts in my business.
Think about what you want, and then start thinking about how. And then prioritize that very first step, prioritize that very first day, and continue every day enjoying that consistently, persistently, in the pursuit of your potential.
People that are successful, they can self-soothe, they can stay emotionally calm in the midst of a storm. When everybody else is panicking, they're only looking at solutions.
Jump and the net will appear. There have been plenty of times where there was no net and the universe was just like, I see you, I'm not putting my arms out, because you needed to fall on your face. And I've just realized that as many times as I have gotten back up, I was supposed to fall. The greatest entrepreneurs are the people who understand that falling is part of the process. So if we just said, I'm going to fall now, and I'm going to fall probably another 175 times before the end of my career, if I look around and say, this is normal and every entrepreneur faces this, then yeah, it sucks. And yeah, I took the jump. And yeah, I didn't end up where I wanted to, but do I have the courage and wherewithal to get up again? And if the answer is yes, you're going to be in business. And the answer is no, you're going to go back to your cubicle and live a very predictable life that is not as fulfilling as you once hoped.
What are you doing on your phone all day? There's probably something within there that's $1 billion opportunity. The crazy part about business, you only need one hit. That's it. Zuckerberg, Warren Buffett, all these people really just did one thing. But I've worked directly for Zuckerberg, Dustin Moskovitz, Matt Kohler, these are all billionaires. Sean Parker, been around Peter Thiel a little bit. I think the two biggest kind of surprises, 2 or 3 of them, one, they didn't set out to become a billionaire. They just really cared about a problem. Now, the second part of that, most of them didn't get to become a billionaire or super rich for 20 years. And recognizing that and being like, okay, cool. If I can be patient and focus on longevity, I can become a millionaire, multimillionaire, maybe billionaire or beyond. Things that's common, especially for employees, is thinking that they can't escape being an employee. You know, it does take time, patience, and belief, dream, fantasy. And through that you can create the reality. I've done a lot of things, man. I've been swinging for a long time, and that's something that's available to everyone. And I do think that's missed out on, that there's a lot of ordinary people being rich and being successful, and people think it's an exclusive club, and that's just not true. I tried 24 different businesses to finally get to AppSumo, to finally eventually get rich. Think about in your own life and your own businesses, like what is the thing you're looking forward to and excited about? And it could even be small. Like one of my phrases I like is put it on the calendar. What's on the calendar? What are you looking forward to? Of what you're excited about. And then the reality is that you can actually get going towards that dream sooner than you realize. Everyone should be an entrepreneur, everyone, because if you get fired today, what's your backup plan? Go on Indeed.com and pray. Like having an entrepreneurship where you can have your own business, and if you start it right now, not how, you just get started. And that a lot of what we cover that is exactly $1 million weekend. You could do it in a weekend, which everyone has. They can change their life in 48 hours. You have the option. And a lot of people, let's take AppSumo.com. We have a lot of people who have very successful side businesses, and they're happy with their day jobs, and that's great. But I think people don't swing enough. They don't even get started swinging, and that's, they're not ready on the sidelines. And there's never a good time. The best time is right now. It's not yesterday because that passed. It's not tomorrow because you don't know. It's right now. There's 3,100 billionaires on the planet, which is not that many. So if you want to meet one and learn from one, that's a really great cheat code of life, and they're accessible. And so taking a step back around interviewing billionaires on our YouTube channel, and then myself running almost $100 million a year business at AppSumo.com, it's the power of asking is the most powerful thing that no one is really improving on or really getting started on. And that's available. There's no exclusivity on it. The upside of asking is unlimited, and the downside is a moment of discomfort. The second thing with this YouTube channel from interviewing billionaires and millionaires is that there's so many different ways of getting rich. I thought that everyone else you can only get rich on the computer and on these worldwide webs. I didn't know how to do it, but I thought that was the only way. And so through the YouTube channel, it's been so powerful and so special. There's Larry Janeski. He's making $600 million a year on basements. You have this lady, Jan, which I guess it's kind of funny. Her name is Jan. She does jam. She got rich selling strawberries. There's Michael Hudner, who did ships. There's Rafa and James, who did energy trading. Right? There's such a phenomenal variety of people that are getting rich outside of just computers. And I think that's so exciting to think about, hey, what is the area that I really like? Is it cooking? Is it doing landscaping? Is it computers? And the ability in that to create a lifestyle and a lot of money around areas that we're interested in. You hear all these, like, I'd say fake entrepreneurs or fake coaches. They don't actually have any real businesses. They're like, you got to 10x today and you got to 5x. If you're not 5xing, you're failing. And I was like, I've done that, but it's also interesting. What if our goals now for AppSumo.com is to grow 10% next year? And it's been that for quite a lot of time. And the reality is when you set less ambitious goals for yourself, you can stick with them for longer because you're not burnt out, you're not tired, you can sustain. And then by having less ambitious goals, you also have creative freedom because you're not stressed about hitting a target. And that gives you the ability to create 10x opportunities because you're like, okay, cool, I'm not worried about making money in that, but I can go do things that potentially, be moonshots and really drive the company for the future. There's a lot more smarter people out there than they give themselves credit for. The only difference is that I start. That's the biggest difference. But I would say the success of a founder and success if you want to be an employee CEO within a company is how are you being resourceful? How are you solving the goal and the problems and the priorities with the resources that are available? Most people sit and they complain like, oh, I don't have this. Like there's a lot of people, I'm not getting paid enough. Well, what are you doing about it? Did you put together a proposal? Did you go look at comparison analysis? Did you go create more revenue so it's obvious that people should pay you more? When you're going somewhere in a car, you're like, of course I want a destination. Then why don't we replicate that in business? If you look at all the best CEOs today, the ones that I admire, almost all of them are immigrants. My father's an immigrant, didn't speak English, came to this country. Satya at Microsoft, name these companies. I mean, just most of them. The guy running Google, Sundar, a lot of the ones. I mean, even Elon Musk, who is debatably a great CEO, South Africa. And so what is it with them that we can all learn from? And at AppSumo.com, we have Eamon from Iran, my father's from Israel, Alona's from Uzbekistan, Sean is from London, Vanessa's from Colombia. Like, what is it about immigrants that we can all copy? Because that is what built America was. We all came here from somewhere else. And so the two things that have really struck with me, and I saw this woman who exemplified it. Her name was Sharon. And she kicked so much, and she was working basically at the Best Western, serving breakfast. And if you've never been to a Best Western, it should be called the OK Western, right? It sucks. It sucks. But she was working like she was at, the Four Seasons. I could not believe it. She's like bringing me pancakes. She's doing all these things. And she was acting like a founder and an immigrant. I would say she is an immigrant. And I asked her, I said, tell me more. What's really going on? She's like, there's two things. It's my attitude and it's my effort. Because that's in control, that you're totally in control of your attitude. And that's what I look for when I work with people and we hire people at AppSumo.com. And her effort. There's literally no restriction on effort. There's no law. The only law is 24 hours. Besides that, you can work as hard as you want. A lot of my success is just because I'm in the market and the market does well. But I'm curious about these things, number one. So I was curious about social networking and I was like, man, money, I think worldwide it's pretty important. I think there's going to be something if you have a free money tool, that's going to be big. Same thing then with Facebook games, that was going to be big. Then I did payments for games, that was big. And then I did kind of a Groupon business, which became AppSumo, that was big. Then we built SumoMe.com, that was big, which is a software tool. So ideally, number one, you're curious. Number two, how do you get a part of it today, right now, not how? Don't worry that you don't have a website, don't worry you don't have a big social media presence, but what can you take action on to put yourself in that space? So can you be in a community online? Can you geographically move? Can you start creating in that space? So I think people are curious maybe and they can find it, but they don't necessarily try it and understand it and they don't do anything about it. And I think the biggest thing for everyone out there is, what are you doing on your phone all day? There's probably something within there that's $1 billion opportunity. Same thing on what you're doing outside, same thing what you're watching on content, and just being a little bit more curious and then taking action around that. I think money is very sensitive, and I think we're taught a lot about how to create it, but I definitely think there's much more there as well, how to enjoy it, and different things that people enjoy. you know, a lot of the interesting thing about success is that it's always externalized, right? It's like, that person is an icon, that thing is successful, they're doing well. And I really think it's like, when do we finally feel like we're doing what we think our potential is? And that is our own icon, our own legendary status. And I would say around 40 is when I finally felt more internal validation, and I stopped focusing on so much of the external validation. Like, how much money do I have? Do I have more than that guy or girl? Did I do the things externally wanting versus like, am I doing really what I want? And am I proud of the hard work that I'm doing for myself? And around 40, I would say I'm really proud of what I've been able to do.
Every single day, and I think to myself, I am the most unqualified, like, non-development tech founder in the face of this internet, and yet I'm still going to do it because I don't want to lie at the end of my life and think, I wish I would have tried something. I had no business starting a business, and yet I started one, and I have found ways to create and make and sustain multiple 7-figure revenue streams. And while that may or may not be the case for everybody else, I strongly believe that every single business owner, once armed with what they know how to do, and once armed with the marketing, and once armed with the discipline, and once armed with the consistency, that they too can build a 6-figure revenue stream. I believe that with every fiber in my bones. Can you deliver on the promise that you are making? Can you sustain those customer relationships? Because if then, I believe hands down, you can create a 6-figure revenue stream. And in America, if you are creating a 6-figure revenue stream, you are in the 1% of the 1%. And I think to myself, as a person who received government issued food and substances, I went to college on the back of government aid. I was the recipient of people's benevolence and taxpayers' money for me to go back and give back to a community. I think to myself that my business has become a passport for me to move entire legacies, industries, timelines, predisposed ideas of who I should be based on my gender, color of skin, or how I was raised. And I'm like, I became the thing that broke the system and the statistic, but I don't think I'm special. I believe everybody can do this. And so on the days that it becomes very hard, I think to myself, you have the passport. Are you going to keep it for yourself, or are you going to help other people get out too? On the days that are the darkest, I always think to myself, can you help one person get a passport today? And that's the thing that continues to keep me pushing forward. The minute that something was complicated and difficult and impossible, and then decided to go after it, like, I thought it was impossible or difficult to ever position myself as an authority to be a consultant. I thought it was impossible. I thought it was impossible to ever create a course, much less create revenue streams of multiple 7 figures in the back of courses. Then I thought it was impossible to create a membership. And then I thought it was impossible to start a tech company. So the earliest part of my career was, I want to become a photographer, and then I want to become a successful photographer. And then all of a sudden, the game got really slow. I could predict my income, I could predict the publicity, I could predict the resources, I could predict the connections, I could predict the publications. And when I predicted it, I loved it and I appreciated it, and then I just didn't want it anymore. And if you don't show up in your business loving what you turn over for your customers or your clients, your business is in decline. And I thought, I must show up 100% for the people who hire me. And if I am not, my time has come. And that's when I started to make shifts in my business. My truth in my experience has been, I have to jump higher. I have to show up earlier. I have to be the first person to turn off the light and the last person to turn off the light. I have to make sure that every number is correct and every T is crossed and every die is dotted. The way that I show up is by being consistent, so consistent that people cannot doubt your capacity to succeed. You have to work harder than the average person. And if you accept those terms, you cannot complain about those terms. I have only known success on the back of consistency. Do I think you could be a success without being consistent? Perhaps, if you have other resources and tools that I was never given. But coming from where I am, my perspective has only been consistency, and the discipline has been everything that I have ever gotten on the back of doing it again and again and again. It is what I teach, it is what I preach, it is what I believe. I'm going to give the advice that I heard my 3rd year of business. I was sitting with a group of other photographers who were farther in their career, and I had always found a way, even though I couldn't afford to get educated specifically in the photography realm because there was like very high ticket experiences, I would find a way to leverage what I thought I was good at in exchange. And so I found a photographer in my area. I was living in Los Angeles at the time, and I said, hey, would I be able to go to your event and write a few blog posts about your event? And in addition to, if you let me come, could I also write your bio, like for your website? Because I gave like a little preview. I was like, his bio was just like, great photographer, love my camera. And I kind of wrote just like the first paragraph of what could be his bio based on things that I had read about him on the internet. And he was just like, yes. So I got into this room, and what he said, I felt like it just pierced my heart. And this is the thing that I will tell everybody again and again. He said, jump and the net will appear. And it was the first time in my entire life that I had ever heard somebody speak so brazenly about taking a risk. Again, who I am now as a risk taker is so different than who I was when I began. And the way that you strengthen that risk muscle is by taking risks. And when he said that 3 years into it, I realized, okay, now is the time for me to start taking those risks. I wish somebody would have told me that sooner. Let's just be real, right? Like, people hear that jump in the net will appear, jump at like the universe has your back, and we love it. We're like high-fiving because we've been on the other side. But like, there have been plenty of times where there was no net, and like the universe was just like, I see you, I'm not putting my arms out, because you needed to fall on your face. And like, I've just realized that as many times as I have gotten back up, I was supposed to fall. I was supposed to face plant. And the less time I spend groveling in the gravel, the faster I find my next success. The biggest difficulty is that people fall and then they stay down. The greatest entrepreneurs are the people who understand that falling is part of the process. So if we just said, I'm going to fall now, and I'm going to fall probably another 175 times before the end of my career, if I look around and say, this is normal and every entrepreneur faces this, then yeah, it sucks. And yeah, I took the jump, and yeah, I didn't end up where I wanted to, but do I have the courage and wherewithal to get up again? And if the answer is yes, you're going to be in business. And the answer is no, you're going to go back to your cubicle and live a very predictable life that is not as fulfilling as you once hoped. We all face a particular narrative, regardless if it's professional or personal, because if you decide that you want to run a marathon, oftentimes the person who stops you from running a marathon is nobody else but you. If you want to start a business, the person who's stopping you is nobody else but you. If you decide to run the marathon, somebody's gonna have an opinion of you while they're sitting on their couch, no less. They will have an opinion that you decided to run the marathon or you didn't decide to run the marathon. While somebody is sitting on their couch behind their keyboard, they're gonna have an opinion of you starting a business or not starting a business. The fact of the matter remains, are you going to let somebody else's opinion dictate what you are going to do in your life and the reason you were put on this earth? Oftentimes, the person who stops ourselves from doing other things while we would like to point at other people because they have an opinion, it is actually us. We choose to believe, listen, adhere to somebody else's opinions, but somebody else's opinion of us doesn't pay our bills. The person who has an opinion about what it is you're doing was most likely never going to become a customer. So all of a sudden, somebody who is never going to buy or support the thing that we were going to do, be it passing out Gatorade on the marathon or by becoming a paying customer, they were never going to be that person, yet those are the people who we let stop us doing from the very thing that we do. We stop ourselves when what we need to say is, not everyone will be for us or about us. Do you accept the terms of that? And if you say yes, do it to the best of your ability.
Fastest way to get to where you want to be, find someone that's already there and ask them for help. You would be amazed how many older, successful people want to help. So don't talk yourself out of asking for help. But also, one of my favorite ones is show me your friends and I'll show you your future. I see so many people surrounding themselves. See, your frequency is your neighborhood. And let me explain what that means. Is your frequency is created by your neighbors. And if you're sitting in the projects on a lawn chair drinking a Colt 45, you may have all the skills in the world, all the knowledge in the world, all the desire in the world. And when you turn to your buddy on the lawn chair drinking and you say, hey, can you help me? How many options, opportunities, and touches of favor do you think someone in your neighborhood is going to be able to give you? I'm telling you, frequency and vibration wise, surround yourself with the right people and the right ideas. Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Surround yourself with people that are going to give you more options, more opportunities, and more touches of favor. Surround yourself with people that feed you. So many people are being bled. 80% of their time is around people that make them feel like crap. They're watching things that make them feel like crap. They're listening to things that make them feel like crap. They're surrounding themselves with people that make themselves feel with crap. They're being bled all day long and wonder why they feel bled. Take my advice, ask for help, surround yourself with people that feed you and feed them. It'll be amazing, the difference in your life. When you're young, because they were young and they know how important, they know that they would not be where they're at if they didn't have someone elevate them, and they wouldn't be where they're at unless they're elevating others. You need to elevate others to elevate yourself, but also you need others to elevate you to elevate you. It's amazing, and everyone, see, they get fooled by the closed mind. I tell people, life is so simple today because of the size, scope, and scale of access that we have. We don't have to write. You can DM them, you can email them, you can call them. This wasn't available when we were working for the Oilers or wherever. And why is that important? Because I teach kids, especially, just look for the open mind. How do you find an open mind? Smile at someone. If they smile back, they have an open mind. Tell them you like their clothes. Tell a woman you like their purse or their shoes. If they smile, they have an open mind. It takes 1,000 times the effort to convert or to transition or re-engineer a closed mind than an open mind. And remember this, everybody has an open mind some of the time. Some people, almost all the time. Some people, almost never. But if you catch someone who has a closed mind when it's open, it's really valuable. So qualify people by open minds. They have open hearts and open hands. And guess what? They surround themselves with people with open hearts, open hands, and open minds, which allows you to create two types of people in your neighborhood. People who help you and people that know someone that can help you. Nothing can help you more. There's different worlds that I've lived in. And the first world that I live in is a common one. It's the world of not enough. And not only is it a perceptive world of not enough, it's actually economically was a world of not enough. I had a single mom, 6 kids, 5 boys, 1 girl. My mom worked 2 jobs as a 2nd grade teacher, packed our dinners in a paper bag, drove us around in a station wagon to fill up turnstiles at convenience stores just so we could eat. But I was happy. The only time I wasn't happy is I would catch my mom crying to financial despair. It was always some sort of financial stress of clothes, food, summer camp. It varied in degrees, but my mom wanted the best for us and couldn't afford it. And so she used education as her empowerment tool. But I, unlike my siblings who went to Harvard, Penn, and Columbia, I felt as if, gosh, if I could be rich and buy my mom a house and a car, then I would be completely happy. I had this extraordinary family, great education, but I was always missing money. And so it created a world of not enough. I would say, why me? Everything happened to me. Right? When the car broke down, it happened to me. I was a victim. And then through my philosophy of enjoying the consistent everyday, persistent without quit pursuit of this gold mine, this potential of wealth, 9 months out of law school, despite anyone believing in me, they mostly laughed at me, scoffed at me, and made fun of me because I wasn't doing what everybody else thought I should do. I made my first $1 million and bought my mom that house and car.
9 months.
Within 9 months of graduating, I entered a new world, I always say, a world of just enough. And that world was a confirmation of a belief that I had. Money could buy you love and happiness. And 3 years after starting that job, we exited at $3.4 billion in 1995. 1995, $3.4 billion exit changed my trajectory. I went to the Silicon Valley. I raised hundreds of millions of dollars. By the time I was 30, I was knee deep in this world of just enough for me. And what I learned was, because money was my God, I used to tell Mom, hey, I don't believe in God. She said, oh, you believe in God, you just don't know what God you believe in. And I didn't really understand what she means. I get a little choked up thinking about it, because at 30, I married my dream girl from the 4th grade. A girl at 6th grade camp, my best friend Robbie, asked her to go steady for me, and she said no. Tell him to ask me himself, and he embarrassed me. So I threw eggs at her, rocks at her. I'm now married to my dream girl. I'm a multi-millionaire. I live in a dream house. I have dream cars, dream boats, dream motorhomes. I have a ski mountain. I have a golf course, everything I ever dreamed of. But I wasn't happy. And when I wasn't happy in this world of just enough, everything became a trade or negotiation. Even giving, right? I would give to receive recognition, acknowledgement, business development. And I'm sure you know people like that live in this world of for me. And they seem very optimistic and philanthropic, but usually they live in that world of a void, a shortage, and an obstacle that I did. And I was always in search of happiness, buying things to be happy, buying more things to be happy, buying things to impress people for their approval, buying more things to impress people that I didn't even like. I had to come to grips that I had become a liar, a cheater, a manipulator, an overseller, a back-end seller. And that I sat there that day taking stock in who I was and what I wanted to become. This is 2 years earlier than me losing everything. I will tell you, if somebody asked me about my bankruptcy at that time, imagine having to ask your mom to move because you forgot to take the house out of her. The only reason I want to be rich is for my mom. Only one reason I want to be rich is to buy her that house and a car. And I have to tell her, hey, you need to move out of your house because I lost your house. And I would tell you at that moment, it may have been one of the most challenging, painful things in my entire life. But here I am 14 years later to tell you it's the best thing or one of the best things that's happened to me. Without that bankruptcy, without that experience, I would either be divorced or dead. So I'd already learned the lessons, I was practicing them, but there's still that reality of, oh my gosh, I went from owning 33 homes in San Diego alone to a rented house, rented furniture, a pregnant wife with 3 daughters under 10. What am I gonna do? And I gotta tell my mom she's moving. I have really messed this up. And in some respects, I was more equipped, but in others, it was like, okay, I already got the lessons, why are you punishing me? And when I laid there in bed that day of filing bankruptcy and keeping it secret, because I wasn't the person that I am today, I illuminate all my, right? I am who I am. You're either gonna love me for who I am, but you're not gonna love me for who I'm not. You can hate me for who I am, but you're not gonna love me for who I'm not. I'm gonna tell you the truth and illuminate to the best of my ability, spend minutes and moments outside of the truth, minutes and moments in ego-based consciousness. That's the secret sauce of what I do. But when I lied there in bed, it was another coincidence because tears were rolling down my face. I could not lift up my arms, right? It was harder almost because I knew the lessons. It wasn't like I was in that ignorant arrogance where I was in blame, shame, and justification. I was lying there being accountable, and that's hard. And at that time, accountability still was tied to what did I do to attract this to myself? What am I supposed to learn? It's evolved to what did I do to participate in it or the perception of it and what am I supposed to learn? But I remember, like I wanted to get up. TV was on, almost like The Jacket. One of my favorite movies is Rocky. And so I'm lying there, completely crushed. And I turn it on and there's Rocky 1. The end of the movie's on, and it's that scene, the music's going, I'm crying, and Apollo Creed is just beating Rocky. And I don't know if you remember the scene, he's hanging, and then he gets to the ground, and what's her name? Adrian's in the back, and he's sitting there, and he couldn't get up. 6, right? And Mickey's like, stay down, right? And everyone else, get up, and Rocky, and I'm sitting there, I'm down, and I'm watching him, and he looks up. I see it, he looks up. Somehow, the music going, and he gets back up, right? And then he pops Apollo in the ribs, and that round ends, the second to the last round. And the movie continues on to 8 more movies or whatever. I think to myself, what if he didn't get up? What if that movie ended that he was just crushed? He had learned all the lessons. Remember, he went through all the different lessons in the movie that made us root for him, love him. But that one moment of bankruptcy, he had a decision to make. If I can look up, beyond everybody else, I'm gonna get up. And because he got up, we all know what happened in the other 8 movies. I wanted to see what was gonna happen in the other 8 movies for me. Yeah, well, first of all, look up and then breathe. Think about what you want. Think about how you can help and who can help you. And then start thinking about how. And then prioritize that very first step, prioritize that very first day. Start thinking about what you want and continue every day enjoying that consistently, persistently in the pursuit of your potential. Also, have an open mind. Remember, I talk about what I think I want in the future. I'm open to learning and changing my mind. I love fast learners and I love immigrants. And so if you feel that way, look up and then think about what you want, who you can help and who can help you, how best to get that done. I promise you, each day will become easier, it will aggregate upon itself, and pretty soon, you too will be an overnight success.
Hey, I can tell how smart you are, but your life does not reflect that. What the hell is going on? You can become anything you want to become, but you're going to have to pay a heavy price to get there. The most successful people in the world are the people that can self-soothe. So can you avoid being triggered? If you're being triggered and you look outward and you're angry at the person that triggered you, that's weakness. You are manifesting weakness. You have to go, ooh, someone has triggered me. That means I have an insecurity around this thing. I need to address my insecurity. And then that's going to put you in a far more powerful position to move forward. So the people that are successful, they can self-soothe, they can stay emotionally calm in the midst of a storm. When everybody else is panicking, they're only looking at solutions. And that's the other thing about the no bullshit, what would it take game. The whole point is to switch you out of problem mode into solution mode. Most people can only see, these are the 152 ways that this could go wrong. And we started doing that to say, no matter how outrageous, there is a way to pull this off. So what would need to be true for this to work? Stop telling me all the things that aren't going to work. Tell me the thing that is going to work. And once you get to that, you go, okay, well, if we did X, Y, Z, it would work. Okay, now, are we willing to do that, yes or no? And if we're not, is there another thing that we are willing to do? But at least now we're operating from a position of that would work, and successful people are about that. They are good decision makers. They are hyper resilient. They don't stop at failure. They don't get in their own way from an ego perspective. They're looking nakedly at their own inadequacies. And they've got enough confidence to get people going behind them. It is this weird thing of, dude, I fear that I'm too dumb to do the things that I want to do in my life. I never know if I'm right, and I go all out every time. And I'm just trying to make it happen. And so I have the courage of conviction to say, I know about myself. I will keep going until I figure this out. Not that I already understand everything, that I have the courage to figure this out. And then I will go through and I will weather that storm. People are intoxicated by that certainty, where I'm like, hey, get behind me. I will get us through this. I'm not telling you I already understand everything, but I am telling you I will not stop fighting until we get to the other side. Dude, the way that people will pile in behind you when you do that, I have the chills now, because I know how people respond to that. So if you can manage your emotions, if you've got the courage to fight through that storm, if you're not easy to knock off your pedestal, and you're humble enough to know that you're almost certainly making mistakes so that you know when to correct course, that's the recipe. To get people to understand, skills have utility. You don't read a book to get an A on the test. You don't read a book to check something off a list. You read a book to learn something that lets you do something in the real world that other people can't do. And so Elon Musk has a great quote: you're paid in direct proportion to the difficulty of the problems you solve. So you're learning something so you can solve problems, hard problems, that other people can't solve. And so once you understand, oh, this is mechanical. My brain is designed a certain way. There's a certain path that I have to walk to gain skills. And then skills let me do something other people can't do. And by doing things other people can't do, I'm able to serve myself and the group. That's fulfillment. Fulfillment's the point. It is so mechanistic. It's all just deadly simple. And when I'm giving honest answers, I'm always looping around, this is how the human mind works. And every time I say something controversial, it's always about biology. I'm just like, okay. Like, if you want to fight it, fight it. You're going to die tired, and I will propel myself forward, because I'm not judging what is true. I don't deal with the world the way that I wish it were. I deal with the world the way that it is.
One other thing that we do that I think is extremely powerful is we play a game called No Bullshit, What Would It Actually Take? So once we sit there and go, what is our goal? To build a studio as big as Disney. All right, before you even get started, we sit and go, what? Like, no BS. Don't try and say like the things that we want it to be true, but actually what is true, that what would need to be true in order for us to build a studio as big as Disney. And so we sat there and we said, okay, it's going to take us to put our own capital in. It's going to take us to work hard. What does work hard look like? Is it a certain amount of hours? Is it a certain amount of achievements where you put things into place and you make sure you're always incrementally working towards that? Is it that maybe you have to, so this is exactly what we did with Quest. It was, we have to put the house on the line. And that was like the no BS, that's what it's going to take for us to go all in and build Quest Nutrition. And so once we sat there and said, okay, it's going to take us to put our house on the line, it's going to take me at the time to be the supportive wife to come in and help you out. It's going to take no vacations. It's going to mean you're going to need to take a third of your pay cut. Like, we literally sat down and wrote a laundry list of what it's going to take to start in Quest Nutrition. And once we had that list, we just looked at each other and were like, all right, are we willing to do it? And if the answer, when the answer is yes, now you just know what you're heading towards. You know the type of path that you're about to approach. And so there's no surprises. There's no all of a sudden him coming home and going, yeah, babe, so the business isn't doing well. And so, oh my God, I'm so sorry, but we lose our house, right? There's no surprise. We've established what we're going to do in order to go for that goal. And in that comes the sacrifices. What are you willing to sacrifice? What are the things that you're okay with putting aside for now? And a lot of that was my self-esteem, my ego of like, I didn't know what I was doing. So every day I'm struggling, I'm trying to figure something out, and I'm keep failing. But I knew that I had to learn in order to get to the goal that we wanted to get to. So I knew every day I had to get back up. And then the same with him, with the skill sets. What skill sets do I have to learn in order to get to the goal that we want to get to? The thing with excuses is sometimes they're very true, but it doesn't serve you. It doesn't serve your goal. So are you going to let it sit with you, or are you going to find a way around it? So let's say a lot of people's reasoning, which was ours originally when we wanted to make movies, is we don't have enough money. So we're just going to go and do this thing until we have enough money. We don't have enough time. And the truth is, if you play the no BS, what would it actually take? And you say, I don't have enough money. Then you keep going down and go, well, how much money do I need? Okay, what would it take for me to get that money? And sometimes people don't want to look at the answers. So maybe it takes you having to sell your house, move in with your in-laws, and rent one of their bedrooms for the next 3 years in order to save your money so that you can go and start a company. Well, some people don't want to do that. Okay, well, at least now you have your answer, and you're not sitting there using the excuse that you don't have enough money. You just looked at it and like, for me to get there, I need to live with my in-laws for 3 years. I don't want to do that. And now you've just decided, and now you're not beating yourself up over, oh my God, I can't believe I'm not there yet, or like with us with Quest, we didn't leave ourselves any room for excuses, because we just went down that list of, are we giving this over? Are we doing this? Are we actually showing up? And if the answer is no, then how can you expect to reach your goal?
I don't think of myself as being highly intelligent. I meet minimum requirements. There's no doubt. I don't want people to think I don't think I can, get my way through life. But what I'm good at, and what we're good at together, is not being right all the time. It's basically learning from your mistakes. So the physics of progress is you come up with a hypothesis. It should be as informed as possible. You figure out a way to turn that into something you can actually do. So you're going to run a test. Then you actually run that test. And then this is where most people fall down. You have to lower your psychological defenses to stare nakedly at the results. And oftentimes that's going to be, you didn't do something well, you didn't think through this right, you made a mistake somewhere. And then if you're willing to do that and you learn from that, then you can re-inform your hypothesis, make it a little bit better, run that whole system again. And once you get in that loop, then you can really make progress. But yeah, the tenacity it takes to face your inadequacies and continue to try, that's where we've succeeded.
If you understand the system, you can use it to your advantage. If you don't understand the system, it is going to screw you over many times.
When you say manipulate the money, they literally just make more of it.
Right.
Magically.
Literally. And this is where the rich will become richer, the poor will become poorer, and the middle class will get wiped out. And the reason why is because some people, rich people, will understand money and they will continue teaching their kids. And everybody else, the majority of people who have no idea what's happening, will continue to become poorer because they don't even see it happen. As the value of the dollars drop, what happens? For regular people, your salary doesn't stretch as far. Your savings don't buy you as much. And so you're effectively becoming poorer each and every day because for most of us, we're taught to save our money. That's what I was told to do growing up. That traditional Indian house is save, save, save. And so I was told to save my money, and your savings are becoming less valuable each and every day. Well, what wealthy people do is they're not storing cash, they're buying assets. So your investments are zero, and your savings, you're trying to grow that, thinking that you're gonna become wealthy. But you're never gonna be able to outsave inflation. Your savings are literally making you poorer each and every day. However, you don't want to just not save any money. You got to be strategic with it. What I like to say is there are 3 reasons why you should be saving money. You save money for an emergency, have somewhere between 3 to 12 months worth of expenses, depending on your risk tolerance. Save money for a big purchase. You want to buy a car, you want to buy a house, you need some cash to do that. Save money for an investment. If you're not saving money for one of these 3 reasons, you are saving your money the wrong way, and it's making you poorer each and every day.
What are the things, the habits that keep people poor?
Wow. Well, the first one really has to do with understanding money, because unless you understand what money is, none of the other habits really matter, because at its core, what is money? And when you ask people that, you might say it's a $100 bill, a $50 bill, that's what money is. But what is that money? Because that money that we have today is different than what money was 60 years ago. The money that we call money today is currency. It's really just pieces of paper. And when you understand that, it's going to change what you do with the money. And the reason why I'm saying that is because my family's from India, a state in India called Punjab. And over there, it's a very traditional thing that when you earn this paper dollars, many people will convert this cash into gold because they understand that these paper dollars lose value and it's just paper. So they want to convert it to something real, something tangible, so they will go out and buy gold with it. You have the government and the Fed. The government spends money. Now, where do they get their money? Well, they get their money from taxpayers, people like you, me, people watching this video, through tax dollars. Now,
Can we hammer that for a second?
Sure.
The government does not make money. The government takes money from people who are making money.
Right.
Now, that's not necessarily bad, because they provide a lot of amazing things, but they're not necessarily efficient with their dollars.
You have to understand what someone's role is. If you are a company, right, you have a company, your job is to make a profit, because if you don't have a profit, you're not going to be in business unless you have some other stream of, venture capital debt or something. But if you don't have a profit, you can't continue operating. And so your job is to be as efficient as possible as a company. The government can actually be benefited by being inefficient, because what is the government's job? You have to understand what is their role. If their goal is to create jobs, well then you can be as inefficient as you want and you can achieve that goal. Because if I'm the government, I just want to create as many jobs as possible, I can pay people to pick up this mug and put it from the left hand to right hand. I just created a job. You're employed, you have an income, but you're not producing anything of value. And this is where you have to understand, okay, what is that purpose? And so now, if we get away from the politics for a second, the government now spends money. They get money from taxpayers because the government is not a for-profit entity. They don't create a product and sell it or create something and sell it for a profit. Instead, people make money and then the government taxes your income. Now, just like anybody else, there's checks and balances. If the government has $1 million, they can only spend $1 million, you would think. But that's not how it works. So the government has $1 million, and what's happening now is they're going to spend significantly more than $1 million. Now, if you have a certain amount of income and you spend more than that, what do? Well, you're going to have to subsidize or find that extra cash somewhere. And in the government's case, what they can do is they can go out and look for a loan. It's called a treasury bond. For as long as anyone can remember, have been considered the safest investment anybody can make. Well, what it is you're literally loaning money to the government. But what happens now if there's not enough people out there to loan money to the government? If the government wants trillions and trillions of dollars, if there's not enough people out there to loan that money to the government and they keep wanting to spend more money, you still got to make up this cost. So what do? They call up their friends at the Federal Reserve Bank and they say, hey, we need a $2 trillion loan. And then the Fed's going to say, okay, we got you. Now remember what I said, they're not a reserve. They don't have a cash pile anywhere. So what do? They go to the money printer, boop, 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 and now they can print out $2 trillion. They loan this cash to the government, and now the government got the $2 trillion. The Federal Reserve printed it out of nothing. The government can now take this $2 trillion and spend it in whatever way that they want. It can be inefficient, they can try to create efficient products, but their goal is to hopefully help people. Now, whether they're inefficient or not is a political debate. However, that is what they do. But what happens now when more dollars enter without actual wealth being created? Because we saw this happen in textbook form in 2020 and 2021, where nothing was being produced except money. Well, when more money gets produced, it effectively reduces the value of each individual dollar. This is what inflation is. The word inflation comes from the word inflate. What are you inflating? The monetary supply. So you're increasing the monetary supply, causing the value of each individual dollar to go down, which effectively causes the price of things to go up. And so in 2020, 2021, no one's producing. However, the government is spending money like crazy. Where are they getting this money? The Fed. So the Fed's printing money, giving it to the government's spending it like crazy. Now people are getting money. It's people, it's businesses, it's corporations. This money is being spent, and now everybody is like, wow, I'm sitting at home and I'm rich. You have some people who are getting big unemployment checks. You have some businesses getting millions of dollars, and everything is running smooth. And people are spending money like crazy, buying things, but nothing is being produced. So then what happens? Well, now you have a supply chain mess, because everyone's buying all the stuff in stores. However, no business is able to produce anything because the economy shut down. So the supply chain issue then you start to see is a byproduct of the inflation, because everyone's trying to blame, the inflation is happening because of supply chain issues. But you have to look at what is the real root cause. The inflation is what causes the supply chain issues. How do you decide who gets that money or not? I mean, they're printing money. Somebody's got to pay for that. Who's paying for it? Regular people, average people, because now it's a hidden tax. Because the government can't just spend money without somebody paying for it. They have to generate the tax dollars. If they don't pay it through tax dollars, somebody's still going to have to pay a tax. And inflation now is a hidden tax. It's a silent tax. It affects the people who don't understand money, and it disproportionately affects the poor and the financially uneducated. And this is why financial education is so important, is because if you don't understand this, you are going to get screwed over by the system. Because now, guess what? Your gas is going to be more expensive, your groceries are going to be more expensive, your home cost is going to be more expensive. The cost to do anything is going to cost you so much more today, next year, the year after that. Well, your salary, hey, you got a raise, but you're actually broker now than you were before the raise, because your raise isn't keeping up with inflation.
The indoctrination continues. It's the factory of school and the factory of work saying, fit in all the way. Do exactly what you're told and you'll get a prize. On the other hand, there's this false narrative of authenticity, of social media, of being the next Kardashian, of somehow being this authentic voice that everyone wants to listen to, being an influencer. And that's like winning the lottery. That doesn't happen either. Life on this planet 500 years ago is different than now. The fear we evolved into from generations doesn't know any of that. It simply knows how to trigger fight or flight. It knows how to make us feel like the world is about to end. And it kept us alive in the old days, but now it's a trap.
Seth Godin is a visionary entrepreneur, best-selling author, and world-renowned marketing guru. Known for his groundbreaking approach, Seth has inspired millions to not only think differently, but act boldly through his blog and his books like The Dip, Linchpin, Tribes, and now This is Strategy. He's built and sold 2 successful businesses and authored 21 bestsellers in 39 languages. How does somebody know, like, okay, this is the time just to grind and keep going versus I actually really need to pivot here? What's the difference?
Is that being the best at what you do in the world in which you live is enormously valuable. How do you become the best one? You don't quit when everyone else does. So that leads to the next question, which is, how do we know when to quit? And my answer is...
The Icons is a show where we learn life lessons from those who achieved iconic success. And today, I'm so excited to be having this conversation with somebody I've been learning from for over 2 decades, Seth Godin. Welcome to the Icons by Motiversity.
Well, thank you for having me. 39 languages, but I only wrote them in 1 language. I had help on the other 38.
Fair enough. I mean, speaking of remarkable, you touch on this idea of being remarkable or being unique in a way that is specific to you. And I think that almost everyone is drawn to that in a certain way. How do we become remarkable?
we begin by understanding what remarkable means. It doesn't mean standing out. It doesn't mean having a gimmick. It doesn't mean being the only one in the world. It means worth making a remark about. If somebody else talks about you in a positive way, you are, by definition, remarkable. Why would they do that? They're only going to do it because it's good for them. People don't talk about you because they're rooting for you. They talk about you because they're rooting for themselves. So what it means to be remarkable is to be of service, to bring enough empathy to the table, to not fit in, to not buy the indoctrination, but to stand out on behalf of the people you're trying to make a difference for.
And how did you start to uncover this idea or this kind of philosophy? Was there an episode early on or something that happened early on?
Well, in my book, Purple Cow, I wrote about my late friend, Lionel Poulin. Lionel had died in a tragic helicopter crash, and I wanted to dedicate a book to him. I didn't have a book. I had been out of the publishing world for a little while. So I wrote a book inspired by what I learned from him. Now, we can say a lot of things about Paris, France, but we can agree they have a lot of bakeries. They have more bakeries selling bread than just about anywhere in the world. So why is there a line out the door, still to this day, when his daughter runs it at the Poulin Bakery? It's not because he has a gimmick. It's because the bread he makes and the way he makes it is worth flying across the world to get. It's worth bringing to your friend's house. It's worth talking about because it gives you status. It gives you connection. He didn't do that by copying what other people do. He did that by determining what would be worth making.
You've got this way of seeing the same thing we're all seeing, but from a slightly different angle. And all of a sudden we're like, oh, I now see it the way Seth sees it. It's amazing. What do you feel like the world needs to see slightly differently right now?
You know, there are two things going on, particularly for young people. One is the indoctrination. The indoctrination continues. It's the factory of school and the factory of work saying, fit in all the way. Do exactly what you're told and you'll get a prize. And we're discovering that indoctrination with the issues of caste and injustice that come with it doesn't really work for a lot of people. On the other hand, there's this false narrative of authenticity, of social media, of being the next Kardashian, of somehow being this authentic voice that everyone wants to listen to, being an influencer. And that's like winning the lottery. That doesn't happen either. So those are the two poles. And what we have to do instead is dig in and figure out where the system is. Why are we being indoctrinated? Where are the opportunities to contribute in a way where we can point to and say, I helped grow that. That big problems demand small changes. Small changes over time that add up to making a big difference.
You touch on this experience that a lot of people are going through, and we work with a lot of youth. A lot of youth watch our channels, and you can feel their fears, you can feel their hopes, you can feel all sorts of things, but you talk about fear in a really interesting way. You talk about it as kind of an indication that you're onto something meaningful. How have you managed fear, or how could those who are listening understand fear differently?
Life on this planet 500 years ago is different than now. Many people, billions of us, have a roof over our head. We know where dinner is coming from. But fear, the fear we evolved into from generations, doesn't know any of that. It simply knows how to trigger fight or flight. It knows how to make us feel like the world is about to end. And it kept us alive in the old days. But now it's a trap. So, writer's block. Writer's block doesn't exist. It was recently invented. It's a myth. There's no such thing as writer's block. But people say they can't write. They're afraid. Well, my friend Steve Pressfield calls that resistance. And resistance is that feeling we get when we're about to do something important. And our option is the same way a marathon runner views getting tired as a symptom they're doing a good job. Being afraid is a symptom that you might be about to do something that involves responsibility and making an impact. And I look for that feeling. If I don't feel it, I'm not trying hard enough.
So it's so interesting that fear, I mean, I think a lot of us would try to get to a place where we learn to live with fear, but you almost learn to look for fear. That's kind of a really interesting, almost signal to know I am doing something important. I am feeling a certain way, but that doesn't mean run. That can mean something totally different. And I mean, I think it's pretty clear to a lot of people we live in a world right now that's so full of fear, and hopefully that can switch or change. But in this time, you've decided to write a book on strategy. Why strategy?
I think the big challenge we have is people don't even know what strategy is. We don't talk about strategy. We think it has to do with planning. Plans are about you exercising your agency and authority. We make a plan and then we work to make it true. Strategy isn't that. Strategy acknowledges that there are other people, that there are other systems, that what we're thinking of doing might not work. And it's hard to talk about that, to say, I'm going to go build these assets and go on this project, and it might not work, but this is my strategy. So instead, we default to following the crowd, whatever the crowd is doing. So saying, I'm going to go on TikTok and get 50 million followers and then make a lot of money, that's like saying, I'm going to go buy a lottery ticket. And people know that the lottery isn't a strategy. Strategy is a philosophy of becoming. It is a reasonable and rational plan of how we are going to engage with other people's plans so that we can all get to where we want to go.
You wrote this line that the future is like an unvisited city, but we can see it from a distance. And I felt like just reading that sentence helped me make sense of so many conversations that happen in a strategic way where you've got some ideas, you've got vantage, you've got all sorts of plans, but so does everyone else that's living in this city. How did you come up with that, or what does that mean to you?
Well, I'm not exactly sure where my ideas come from. I think they come from where everybody else's ideas come from. The difference is I write them down. What we do when we seek to be creative, to have an idea, is we make an assertion and then we tell a story about it. I look for things that don't make sense. And then I try to understand why they could be, because the world should make sense if you understand what underlies it. So the opportunity that someone has as they're coming up in the world is to say, not, that's working, I'm going to go do it, but to say, why is that working? What are the underpinnings that led to a line being out front of that place and not this place? Why is that a well-paid job and not this? Why am I more likely to come out ahead if I do that instead of this? If you can understand the mechanics of it, the dynamics, then when the world changes, and it always does, you won't be stuck.
So if somebody picks up this as strategy, what do you hope is their big takeaway?
Well, the biggest thing I'm asking people to do is to find someone else and talk about it. Don't hide your strategy. Strategies are different than tactics. Tactics, they can be a surprise. They can be an advantage if they're a secret. Strategies, we know what Nike's strategy is. We know Netflix's strategy. We know Starbucks' strategy. It's not a secret, right? And can you tell me what yours is? At this famous college that you're going to almost go bankrupt to go to, why did you choose to do that instead of going to the state school with a full scholarship? If you can't tell me why, you have no business spending $250,000 to go make that mistake.
It's fascinating how it almost can start with questions, can't it? Just these really does in lots of ways. And one of the questions I find personally kind of front and center with this is the question of how do I know when to keep going versus when to pivot, when to change course. And really, it's almost fundamental to leadership and strategy. And you touch on this a little bit in the dip.
Right.
How does somebody know, like, okay, this is the time just to grind and keep going versus I actually really need to pivot here? What's the difference?
So the shortest book I've ever published is called The Dip. And it was the first book about quitting, which is amazing because we all quit, right? Unless you're wearing a tutu to work, you quit ballet at some point. And what I argue in the book, first of all, is that being the best at what you do in the world in which you live is enormously valuable. That if you're going to go buy a bagel or call a locksmith or anything in between, who are you going to call? You're going to call the best one. Being third is worth very little. How do you become the best one? You don't quit when everyone else does. That At the gym, lots of people are there in January and February. They signed up at the beginning of the year. But the ones who are still there in March are more fit because they didn't quit. So that leads to the next question, which is, how do we know when to quit? Because we shouldn't do things that aren't working forever. And my answer is, first, has anyone else ever made it through this dip? Has anyone else made it through the darkness and gotten out to the other side? So organic chemistry is a bear. No one likes organic chemistry. You have to get through it to get into medical school. It's a dip. They built it, not because you need organic chemistry to be a doctor, but because they need a lot of people to drop out. So if you know that, when it gets hard, you can say, good news, this is hard. Now I know why it's here. If I can just make it through this on the other side, things will be better. Okay, that's different than saying, I'm going to be the first person who becomes a billionaire making YouTube videos, right? It looks like, Mr. Beast has finally figured out how to get almost there, but 1 out of 500,000 are bad odds. So if that's not a path, that doesn't mean you shouldn't try, but it means you should go in with your eyes open saying, there's a big chunk of lottery ticket here, that this isn't a well-worn path where I get through a dip and then I'm going to be fine. This is a really difficult path that's probably not going to get me to where I want to go.
If you didn't have the track record, if you didn't have the capital that you have, you were just at your stage of life, still passionate about entrepreneurship, like what would you do tomorrow?
I'd find anyone to pay me for whatever I believed I was solving a problem for, right? Like, I don't even care what the problem is. Like, most likely I'm gonna find the wrong problem to start out with. But very quickly in the path of finding people to pay me for that, not say I will pay you in the future, but like pay me today to solve that problem, I'll figure out if that's right or wrong. What I think people misunderstand about entrepreneurship is we aren't inherently risky or people that like to take risks. We like to take risks when we understand the reward, and the reward is larger than the risk. And that's something that you can't really teach. It's just inside of you or it's not. And people that don't understand that, maybe they can run a small business over time, right? But to be an entrepreneur and scale something up, I think that's the difference between just running a small company, which I think a lot of people can do, and being an entrepreneur and scaling a business. You have to love and live in that risk-reward scenario compared to what people think, which is all risk. And I think the most important thing is to figure out, how do I get my customers to refer other people? For me, that was always the most important metric and factor. Like, I knew I could spend more money on marketing. I knew I could do more activities. But the most important piece was, will my customers tell their peers about what we're doing? And each time that we tweaked and we kind of built around that, that's when we discovered the kind of next steps of growth. And so many times in our journey, we plateaued, right? Like, if it was at $1 million, at 5 million, 10 million, like those are kind of the typical tiers. We plateaued and we sat there as an executive team and said, you know what? We've saturated the market. We can't grow anymore. And we told ourselves this story and this narrative to make it feel comfortable. When in reality, what we should have been pushing and saying is, no. Like, what are the things that our customers are asking for us to do next? How do we get them to tell their peers about us? We started to change our mind and think about that. We grew again and again. Ultimately, before we sold, we were at $30 million a year revenue. Now the company today does about $100 million. So all of those stories we told ourselves were false until we started asking those questions. It's just go out and do something. Like, take that next step. There's so many people I talk to that get stuck, right? And where do they get stuck? It's like, okay, I need a business plan. I need to do this. I need a first customer. Yeah, okay, right? But like, how about just call someone and ask them, do you want this service, right? Like, after that, will you pay me for this? Like, little steps along that journey. That's the advice that I think is most powerful compared to worrying about all the other stuff. It will all come in time. Just do any little step to move forward. Otherwise, a year from now, we're gonna have the same conversation. I don't know what to do next. That was my sophomore year. Ultimately, I ran the company junior and senior year full-time while also going to school. So consolidated my schedule to 2 to 3 days a week in school and the rest of the time in the office. And really spent that time focused on building the company while studying too. We experienced success very quickly. We went from 0 to $1 million of revenue very, very fast, and had to start hiring and learning all sorts of things that we didn't know. But it was just because we were building something for a genuine need. Like, we built this for ourselves. We were entrepreneurs, me and my business partner, that wanted a phone system, press 1 for sales, 2 for support, all that stuff. Super easy, so we weren't on our cell phones, didn't exist, and we just built it. We went out to the market and said, pay us for this. The way we priced it was wrong, the software was terrible, everything about it was wrong. But we said, we're gonna solve this problem, are you willing to pay me? And people said yes. So over time, the software got better, we understood how to package it, how to market it, how to make it look nice, all those pieces. But like the first software, just for reference, we didn't even have a web interface. You could sign up online and then you had to set it up over the phone, right? Like, we started at the base level and said, like, how do we just deliver what we say we're gonna solve for, which is a better phone experience for small businesses to make them look professional. That's what we did, and people paid us. We then said, hey, will you pay me $10 more a month so you can do this online? People said yes, and we built the online part. We always said, hey, we've saturated the market. And it's easy to tell ourselves that when it becomes hard, when it's hard to market, when it's hard to find the next customer. And that just means that we need to find new marketing methods, new channels, new ways, because there's no way that at our size we saturated anything, right? There are hundreds of thousands of new companies every month being formed. Like, we're talking to 1/100th of that, if that, right? So we told ourselves this narrative. And I remember sitting in the room when we started the company. We had a very different name. It was terrible. It wasn't Grasshopper. And we said to ourselves, we can't change the name. We spent so much money on marketing. There's no way. Why would we change the name now? And when we reframed it and said, okay, how much are we going to spend on marketing in the next 10 years compared to the last 5 years? The number was astronomically larger. We're like, okay, well, now we understand that that number before was holding us back. It's not meaningful. What we're really going to spend is to the future. How do we run radio ads? How do we do things when our company name is Got Vmail? Like, terrible. Like, I spent half my life spelling it out to people because it sounded like gov and whatever else, right? 50% of a 30-second radio ad was spelling out the domain name. So like, those were the things that were holding us back. But until we reframed it, we would have just sat there and said, no, we spent too much. We can't. There's no way you can change it. But we did change it. So when we started, we're just doing whatever, right? Now, I think that the first 10 or 15 people we hired had our core values inherently because we did all of the hiring and interviews and such, but we never talked about them. They were not written down. They were not, talked about in the interview process, where if you fast forward 10 years into the company, we asked people before they even got to an interview, here are our core values. Give me at least 3 stories about how you've lived these in your life. Like, that was before you showed up for an interview. Like, that was the pre-screening, right? So like, that was a maturing process over time. 1, writing them down, 2, integrating them, and then 3, actually using them. I think it's hard in our culture that we're always chasing the easy thing, right? The quick fix, right? The scrolling on the phone, the quick hit of dopamine, all of those pieces, where what we really want is to feel good, be happy, and have joy. Those are hard and take time and are difficult, right? It really matters to slow down sometimes. I go fast as anyone else, but sometimes we have to slow down if we want those pieces of life, right? And I find, how do I slow down in my life if it's an hour a day? And I don't meditate, I do yoga for an hour, and that's my brain quiet time. And I try to do that every single day. But again, like, that's slowing down and getting back to how do I feel? What's going on right now? And that takes a long time to get comfortable with. Like, at first, it's really uncomfortable. Over time, it feels better and better. I see a problem, I want to fix it. And the first reaction after understanding, identifying the problem is, okay, what does it take to get there? What's the risk and how big's the reward? Like, that's the next step.
If you're lazy, I mean, there's nothing that can help you. Andrew Carnegie said it best. Tom Watson Sr., the founder of IBM, said it best again. Henry Ford, said it again, and I've said it. If you have to motivate employees, they're not worth having. Nobody ever had to motivate me in my life. And one of my big bosses on Wall Street, who's the godfather to our youngest son, and he hates hearing this. When your dad was 26, 27, 28, we would have to have security drag him out of the office because he'd sleep at his desk for 7 or 8 days. His secretary used to go out and buy new shirts and underwear, and he'd sponge bath in the men's room. I mean, our kids don't like hearing that story, but it happens to be true. Nobody ever had to motivate me. I've never, ever been corrected for making a mistake in my 51 years in business. Never once. I'm always the most prepared in the room. Always, even now. Did you know that Elon Musk doesn't hang? Bill Gates doesn't chill. Yet millennials, that's what they want to do. So if you surround yourself with 4, 5, or 6 people that want to hang, when you're hanging, you're not. Now I know you're supposed to be decompressing, and I understand all that. I don't believe if you have to decompress at the weekend or go on a holiday, because holidays are really important here. I mean, in the UK. You know, everybody's because they lost a down payment or because of COVID. But if you have to go on a holiday and decompress, you got the wrong job, or you don't love what you do. I've never, from 1971 to 1997, I didn't take a day off. Not a day off, and I got married on one of those days. Did you know that 21% of all the people that bought Bitcoin in the last 12 months here in the UK don't have a clue what Bitcoin is? Did you know that the average price for an order in 2019 for Bitcoin was 280 pounds, which is about 350 bucks. In 2021, the last 12 months, it's about $100 more. So they're spending $500 or less. How are you going to change your life with $500 investment? Even if Bitcoin went to $1 billion, it's not going to change many lives. Find something you love. Find something you're passionate about. And only surround yourself with other people that are passionate about the same thing. And then if it's work to you, it's not worth pursuing. I don't consider myself working. I consider myself, this is like a hobby. And I haven't had to work in 35 years. I had a young lady interviewing me that explained to me why millennials buy these stocks that are worth nothing. And she says, basically, we don't have any option, legal option, how to get rich. I used to give a lecture in universities, wealth, risk, reward, not. The system that was devised 70 years ago after World War II, you go to work with a company, you work 30, 40, 45 years, you get a pension, you don't get a gold watch as nice as mine, and you can live in a picket house with 2.4 dogs, 6.4 grandchildren, and hopefully your original wife. Well, that model is dead. That is impossible anymore. And on top of it, you have $150,000 to $250,000 in debt for going to school. Some kids will be 45 years old and still be paying off student debt. Well, that's a load of crap.
You want people with a like mind and that are better than you, smarter than you, more intelligent than you to get on your bus. And don't be so concerned about what you're going to do with those people, but you want to, the joint brain is, there's nothing the joint brain, collective brain or brains can't overcome. And I give the example of the atomic bomb, the Manhattan Project, and they were put together and they were told, we need to develop a weapon of mass destruction, which they didn't call it that back in those days, in the middle 40s, to end the war in the Pacific. And they did. They didn't know if it was implode or explode, but they did. But if your team doesn't look like that, then you should, I won't say you should give serious thought, you should just change.
Number one, you want to be in a business where there's big margins, big gross margins. Not, for example, retail, forget about it. Restaurants, forget about it. Things that you want big margins. Unfortunately, in my opinion, most internet businesses have big margins. That's why you flock to it. First of all, you want between 20 and 40% gross margins. So even if you mismanage it, you'll come out with a decent net margin. Number two, if you're not first, you have to be different. What I see kids doing is just replicating the same business idea over and over again. How are you different? Well, who's your market? Do you really understand who your market is? More money than you think being made in green. I'm not a believer that the world's going to end in because of global warming, but there's little niches. I would look at government contracts because unfortunately the Canadian government, the US government, the British government doesn't have a level of expertise that you have to bid on government contracts. So that means you, young lady, could bid on government contracts in Canada for whatever. There are 3 million contracts daily being let in the Canadian government. There's 10 million contracts daily in the US government. We've had kids that never attended the seminar that have made tens of millions off government contracts, but most kids want it to be handed to them on a platter. Most kids think they go to a 3-day seminar in Montreal that it's going to be the end-all be-all, and they're going to turn that $3,000 or $1,800 into millions, and that's just not true.
Follow what you're passionate about, what you love. If it's not work if you love what you're doing. Okay. Most people, when I say they're living quiet lives of desperation, is because they're involved in a business or a job that they don't enjoy, they're not passionate about. Okay. So if you found something that you're passionate about, that it doesn't matter if you work 3 hours a day or 13 hours a day, that's where you start. And most people aren't there. Most people have to find that.
And what would happen if you left? What would happen if you stayed? What would happen if you changed? It's up to them to pull themselves out of the victimhood. It's hard to see from a victim standpoint the aspect that everything's a choice. And I move ahead with everything's a choice. Existentialism, that it is a choice. And how you feel about it and what you do about it. Doesn't mean there aren't barriers around you. Doesn't mean the world doesn't want to guide you to a certain end point. But you are in the driver's seat of your life. There's power in knowing who you are. There's not much power in being a zombie and just walking through the world and saying, well, a lot of people do it is they do stuff and they say, I don't think that's it. They do something else, I don't think that's it. Well, what do you think it is? Don't work every vocation in the world, every spot in the world as a null set until you find out what it is. Make a declaration. The leader part is that they're able to bring out those characteristics in others, that consciousness in others. They don't do it by cajoling or by manipulation. That can be done. It can be done for a short term, but it's not a long-term measure. But they actually help people in the discovery, if they're not already awake to who they are, they help them become awake to why they're in this business or organization. And together that they start to move aggressively towards a vision. That's what differentiates teams, and that's where work spirit comes into play. That spirit of purpose, and it's enunciated, they know what it is, and they speak directly to it. What differentiates the best leader in these systems, or the best leaders? And it has something to do with this spirit, passion, for something they hold deeply at and consciously at bay. Who they are and why are they in the world becomes very important. Be appreciative that you've learned how to manage yourself, then move towards leading yourself. And in leading yourself is understanding and starting to do the deep inquiry that you'll do for life. Why am I here on earth? For what purpose? and then to establish a vision, probably as a 20-year-old, it's probably 25, 5 years out. Where do I want to be? What do I want to be doing, being with, learned, knowing, all those areas, and then what values do I want to operate within? So it's really developing that vision, value, and purpose for myself. And then once I have that, then I'd say the last step is start to identify people that I align with on purpose at different levels and start to move with them into the world. Lead yourself before leading others. And this issue of leading yourself is discovering that purpose. And you start by asking the question, why am I here? I'm not talking about in the office or in that organization or in that country, but here on the planet. And that's the only way there is to start. It may be an incomplete answer. It may be a partial, it probably is. Maybe a half-baked answer. But that is much superior to I don't know and I don't want to question. There's this issue of self-awareness coming forth. And Tasha Eurich is a researcher. In 2017, she put out a book on awareness. She's been trying to has been measuring awareness using different categories that she speaks about 95% of people believe they are self-aware, when in fact it's more like 10 to 15%, she quotes, are self-aware. And she says, don't confuse thinking about yourself the same as being self-aware. Don't confuse thinking about yourself the same as being self-aware. And what she's trying to bring forth is that the process of working on yourself and bringing you as a being present to you is different than just seeing what your triggers are, or it's different than just seeing what your likes or dislikes, or seeing it's really the hard work of understanding who you are and then start to guide that. And as Marvin and I say, Dr. Washington and I say, lead yourself. Lead yourself before you try to lead somebody. So this issue about it's about the team, but it's about me. It's about the team, it's about me. Gets conflicted. It's a prioritization that looks appealing to members because the lion is strong, asserts itself, roars, powerful, but never get confused who it's about. It's about that lion. Any publicity don't talk to me about what you did. Let's talk about what I did as a leader. If you took leaders in the past, that would be a lion leader would be something like MacArthur in the Pacific, General MacArthur. It's all about me. Most people can't name a general that was under MacArthur's command. But if you go to Eisenhower in World War II in the West, we know about Bradley, we know about Patton, we know about a bunch of them. Why? Because he was a leader of a wild dog pack, drawing together both the Brits and the Americans, all these different personalities to do what? A single focus, defeat Nazis. Yeah. Wild dogs are unique. That issue of we have a shared vision, and the vision, I don't trump the vision. It's not about me. It's about what we've set our collective mind to. And I'll do anything as your leader to make that happen with you. And perseverance, tenacity, I refuse to give up. But the issue about transformational change and making a leap in leadership is much different. It's really about now the heart, the passion, where am I going? And in that you can see the nature of leaders. And the problem with leaders, sometimes we get the ones that have been highlighted. There's many in our community that are the same. They're no different. We have the Mother Teresa's, we have the Martin Luther Kings, we have those JFKs in our midst. They're not on the big scale or whatever else, or they may go unknown, but they're there. And what you'll see is that it comes from the heart that they may not be the most articulate or swift, or you may want to give them some pointers about how to be a better leader. But that their leading is not in question, and that they'll move to where they want to go is not in question. Back to Martin Luther King. Did he have the critical vote on the Civil Rights Bill? Did he make it happen? What was he, a senator? Was he president? Who was he? He was behind LBJ in the signing of the document. Who was he? Who elected him? Nobody. He decided, I'm leading this thing. They didn't take a vote in the USA and say, who's going to lead civil rights within USA transformation? He says, I'm the person. And he found other people, Andy Young, people like that then he said, this is where we're going. And even though he had trip hazards along the way, that purpose, that drive towards that thing, and even when he went off script a little bit, he went off script in some areas that were black militant, and he regret and came back and said, that's not what I'm here for. When he was popular, he stayed the course. When he was unpopular in '68, talking about the Vietnam War, which a lot of people didn't want him to talk about. I thought we hired him for civil rights. What's he talking about? It all was the same to him. He was going to lead whether the spotlight was on him or not. It's important at any age in life to answer the question, why are you here and what are you about? And it's the essence of leadership.
He's an American businessman, Silicon Valley innovator,
the entrepreneur, philanthropist.
He's the chairman and CEO of DocuSign.
Is Undersecretary of State for Economic Growth, Energy and the Environment, Keith Krach.
Keith Krach.
Keith J. Krach.
Keith Krach.
I'm a former global CEO, entrepreneur, and engineer myself. I know all too well how challenging and rewarding it can be to build a business from scratch and take it to escape velocity.
But you talk about ownership, and I think that's a word that probably connects to a lot of our viewers. But, they'd also be thinking, how do I do that? Like, how did you have the confidence, the ownership to say, I'm ready to go pitch to the board?
Yeah. I think it comes down to, I built a high performance team as we were getting going, right? And that's the most important job of any CEO. And I really believe that the organization, the company, with the best people wins. And the key is, how do you get them working together as a team, right? The way I believe in that is you've got to have a North Star, a noble cause. You also need an enemy. Because, that stops the water cooler talk, nothing gets the blood stir. The United States State Department, we call it an adversary, but in business we call it an enemy. And then the third thing you need is you need a plan. And with all these companies that I had the good fortune to build and these different organizations I ran, we would always have a playbook. And that's basically the vision, the mission, the values, the team rules, long-term goals, strategy, all boiled down to execution. So it really was a way to maintain alignment and a tremendous tool when it comes to scaling. What I found, one of the things that works is you can't be afraid to be vulnerable. Because when you're vulnerable with somebody, about 95% of the time, they'll reciprocate in kind. And when both sides are vulnerable, that forms a connection. And that is a way that I found all the time. Or also another one is, tell me your story. Everybody loves to tell their story. And I'm just naturally a curious person, so I love hearing, that never bores me. So it's really the power of one-on-one relationships. And one of the things my dad always said is the key is when the world hands you a sack of sour lemons, the objective of the game is to turn it into sweet lemonade. For your vision, and our vision at Ariba was really simple. We said we want to build a great sustaining company into the 21st century because we had just sold Razzler, and we actually kind of wanted to keep it going. They just made us an offer we couldn't refuse. We owed that to the shareholders.
Good problem to have.
Yeah. And then the mission is all about leadership because the object of the game, particularly in Silicon Valley, is to be the category king. Because when you're the category king, you get 80% of the industry resources and 80% of market cap. Players 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they can fight over the scrap. So our mission was to create a category called business-to-business electronic commerce and to be the leader. And then the next thing under that is your values. So, right, integrity's there, courage, high ambition, accountability, respect, the basics. And then we had a set of team rules that kind of personify those values. And by the way, same team rules for all the companies. The first one is direct, open, and honest communication. In a word, the truth. Because I had seen at General Motors, when you go through 15 levels, you know, I started at the lowest of the low, production floor, to the highest of the high, where I was a staff for the board of directors. I could see how that message would change, right? The second one is no idea is a bad idea. And then we added parentheses, unless CEOs. So, because it's all about making a safe environment.
Sure.
And you can make a safe environment when you mock out the CEO. Plus it's fun. The third one is always raise the standard in everything we do, in our people, our processes, and our products. And if somebody can't keep up with that standard, you got to do something about it. Otherwise, you've automatically lowered your standard. Then the fourth one is we're a team first and functional specialist second. So you developers put your feet in the customer's shoes. You sales guys don't make commitments we can't keep. And then the fifth one is the most powerful one of all. And that is hire the best people, especially if they're better than us. And I'll tell you an inflection point at Ariba. You know, every Friday, up until we probably got to be about 100 people, we'd go around the room in what we call the round table. Anybody could say anything they want on their mind. Ariba, we had 7 founders, right? And so this one guy stands up, our VP of marketing, one of the founders, Bobby Lynn, and he goes, you know, this opportunity is way bigger than I ever imagined. Ariba's gonna be way more successful than even I can dream of. And he goes, citing team rule number 5, I think we ought to go out and hire a real world-class VP of marketing who's done it before, and I'll focus on partnership. And you could just see jaws dropping. And the guy who came after him, I'll never forget this guy, his name was Guy Haskins. He was about 24 years old. He just goes, Bobby, I just came from a software company. It is gonna go bankrupt any day now. But if one guy would have had the courage to say what you just said right now, we could have taken it to the moon. So from that point on, it became noble to hire the best people, especially better than us. You know, I've had the good fortune of living the American dream. And I feel really, really, really blessed. And so I think that was one of the things my parents, you know, obviously my drive comes from my upbringing. And it's about paying it forward and giving it back. And so if you look at the things, whether it's what I did in higher education or in the business world or in public service, it's all about that next generation. You know, one of the things that I started before I went off into government was called the Global Mentor Network. And it's all about mentoring tomorrow's transformational leaders at scale. So, you know, we created all these videos of these really famous transformational leaders. And so if you ask me, okay, so what would be your big legacy you want to leave behind? I think back of what my dad would always say about fatherhood. He goes, you never know if you're a good father until you see your children's children. So I would say, you know, it's all about my mentees. You never know if you're a good leader until you see your mentees, because you're teaching them how to cascade that down. And I've had some great mentors in my life. You know, there's a genealogy out here in Silicon Valley because this stuff's not written in a book, right? So you learn from the previous guy. My mom would always say the best way to learn is OPE, other people's experience. She would always say the best way to learn is from your mistakes. She goes, learn from other people's mistakes. You have time enough to make your own, right?